Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive with us. Today, we're going to be looking at this article. How can biblical love strengthen your marriage? And I know, we've all heard about love and respect and all that.
Right.
But this one really goes
It
deep.
does. Yeah, it really digs into like the foundation
Yeah.
of a strong marriage, like a truly like Christ-centered marriage.
Yeah, and I think one of the most surprising things that I saw in this article was this idea of
Yeah.
radical transparency.
Like right out of the gate.
It says transparency is a weapon against the enemy.
That's a powerful statement.
What do you think they're getting at with that?
Well, when we think about hiding things,
Yeah.
secrets, fears, past hurts,
Mm.
it creates this breeding ground for mistrust
Mm.
and resentment.
Yeah, it's like building your marriage on a cracked foundation.
Exactly. And, Ephesians 5.1 talks about
Yeah.
exposing the works of darkness.
Right.
And I think that's really what the author is referencing here.
Yeah.
True intimacy requires bringing those things into the light,
Yeah.
being vulnerable with each other,
Mhm.
even when it's uncomfortable.
That makes a lot of sense. And it's not about like constantly being negative, but just fostering that deep connection
Right.
that comes from being known
Yeah.
and accepted.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it makes me think, are there any works of darkness that I'm
Right.
unintentionally holding back from my spouse?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Now, the article shifts gears a little bit and dives into some specific guidance for husbands.
Okay.
And it kind of centers around that well-known passage in Ephesians 5.25.
Right.
Husbands, love your wives, just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her.
Oh, yeah. We've all heard that one.
Right.
What does that even look like?
That's where it gets good.
Okay.
The article goes beyond just quoting the verse and
Right.
really unpacks what that kind of love looks like practically.
So it's not about the big gestures.
Not necessarily.
What is it about?
It's about those everyday choices we make.
Okay, so what are some of those everyday choices?
Well, for starters, the article talks about speaking words of life, affirmation, and encouragement.
Mm-hmm.
It's about being an active participant in your wife's struggles, offering support and empathy rather than just being a passive observer.
It's about being there for her.
Right.
Yeah, I love that. I think of, like when I had a mentor who really went to bat for me at work,
Yeah.
and just knowing that I had somebody in my corner who believed in me
Right.
and was willing to fight for me,
Yeah.
it made all the difference. And to think about offering that same level of support to my spouse
That's powerful.
is incredible.
Yeah. And the article also emphasizes the importance of presence. Truly being there for your wife, both physically and emotionally, engaging in her life and interests.
It's so easy to
Yeah.
fall into that trap of just sharing the same space, but not really being present with each other.
Especially with all the distractions of life these days.
Yeah.
It's easy to get caught up in our phones or, just not really be there.
Intentionality is key.
It is.
Now,
Yeah.
article also gets into something that's a little bit more sensitive.
Yeah.
Respect for a woman's body and spirit, especially when it comes to intimacy.
This is where I think the article gets really nuanced.
Okay.
It emphasizes approaching intimacy with sensitivity,
Mm.
understanding that a woman's physical and emotional needs are
Right.
intertwined.
Yeah.
It's about cherishing and respecting her as a precious gift, not just focusing on the physical act itself.
So it's not just about don't be a jerk.
Right.
It's about really
And
understanding
get deeper than that.
the depth of what it means
That's
to
right.
respect your wife.
Yeah.
And it makes me wonder, are we truly approaching intimacy in a way that honors
Good question.
and cherishes our wives?
Mhm.
Are we paying attention to their needs and desires, or are we just focused on our own?
Those are tough questions,
Yeah.
but important ones.
Yeah. The article goes on to address something I think we're all probably guilty of.
Oh, yeah.
Comparison.
Especially in today's world.
Oh, yeah.
It's social media.
Social media is the king of comparison.
It's so easy to compare our spouse or our relationship or our lives to everybody else's seemingly perfect
Highlight reel.
highlight reel.
Yeah.
So how do we combat that?
Yeah. How do we stop doing that?
Well, the article encourages us to shift our focus inward
Okay.
to appreciate the unique beauty of our own marriage.
All right.
It actually quotes Proverbs 5.18.
Okay.
Rejoice in the wife of your youth. Instead of constantly looking at what we lack,
Yeah.
we need to recognize and celebrate the blessings we already have.
It's so easy to focus on what's missing
It is.
and not what's there.
It is.
Yeah.
So gratitude can be a really powerful antidote.
Absolutely. Take a moment and think about what makes your spouse special.
Yeah.
Like, what are those qualities that drew you to them in the first place?
Yeah.
What moments bring you joy?
Mm-hmm.
Just dwelling on those positive aspects can really shift your whole perspective.
It's absolute.
Now we get to a topic that I think can be really divisive.
This one can be tricky.
Submission.
Yeah, this is a word that evokes a lot of different feelings for people.
Does the article just say, wives submit to your husbands?
Not exactly. It takes a much more nuanced approach.
Okay.
It starts by acknowledging that submission doesn't mean blind obedience or suppressing your own voice.
Okay.
The article actually uses the example of Daniel and his friends who disobeyed the king's command to worship idols because it violated their conscience.
So there's a difference between respecting authority and compromising your values.
Right. Morals.
Right.
Yeah.
So how does that relate to marriage?
Well, it's about finding that balance between honoring your husband's leadership and standing firm in your convictions.
Right.
The article really emphasizes that love should be the guiding principle here. If we truly love our spouse, we're going to seek their good.
Yeah.
Even if it means disagreeing or setting boundaries.
So it's not about one person always getting their way.
Right.
It's about
what's best for the relationship as a whole.
Even if it requires those tough conversations.
Absolutely.
Or compromises.
Yeah.
And it makes me think, it's about mutual submission.
Right.
Both the husband and wife are called to submit to each other.
Out of reverence for Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not about
who's in control.
Yeah.
It's about
serving one another.
Serving one another and supporting each other, recognizing each other's strengths and weaknesses.
Like, we're a team.
We are a team.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It reminds me of a dance.
I love that.
Where each partner leads and follows in turn.
It's the beautiful picture of what marriage can be.
And when we can operate in that kind of unity, we can accomplish so much more than we ever could on our own.
We're better together.
Yeah. Now, the article ends on this really encouraging note.
Very beautiful.
It says, let us rejoice, because the best is always in the future, and in hope, since we were renewed and vivified in his presence.
So good.
It reminds us that even when things are hard, even when we mess up, there's always hope for growth and renewal.
We're not in this alone.
And it all comes back to that relationship with God.
It does.
When we're rooted in his love, it overflows into everything.
Everything.
Including our marriage.
Yeah. It's like that verse in 1 John.
Right.
We love because he first loved us.
Yeah.
His love empowers us to love others.
So as we move into the next part of this deep dive, what are some practical ways we can nurture that love?
That's what we're going to be talking about.
But first, we want to hear from you.
What are your initial thoughts on what we've talked about so far?
What resonates with you? What questions are swirling around in your mind?
Yeah.
Share your thoughts with us on social media.
I want to hear from you.
And we'll be back soon to explore the next part of this article.
It's good stuff coming up. Welcome back.
I'm ready to hear about some more of this practical advice.
Well, this article transitions beautifully from those big concepts to like the tangible stuff.
Okay.
And it starts with this question.
Oh, what's the question?
It asks, how would you love your husband if you were Jesus in person?
Oh, wow.
It really makes you think.
Yeah, it makes you think.
It's so easy to get caught up in like the day-to-day.
Right, the daily grind.
The grind and forget the sacredness of marriage.
Yeah.
But picturing your spouse as Jesus, that's a game changer.
It takes it to a whole other level.
It really does.
Yeah.
So it challenges us to elevate our love.
Okay.
The article then breaks down like how this might look in everyday life.
So it's not just like once a year.
Yeah,
it's
not
in their book
anniversaries or special occasions. It's in the day-to-day.
It's how we talk to them, how we act, how we think.
Absolutely. It's in everything.
Okay, so how do we balance that with the reality?
Right.
That they're not perfect.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
The article addresses this head on. Okay. It reminds husbands, and I quote, Christ loves your wife much more than you love yours.
Oh.
It's not meant to be a guilt trip, but a deeper reflection.
Yeah. I can see how some people might feel a certain way about that.
It might sting a little.
Well, what's the message?
But the message is to hold our love up to Christ's love.
Yeah.
You know, the article describes it beautifully.
How do they describe it?
Christ doesn't rush her. He encourages her, respects her comforts, teaches her, listens to her.
Lex.
It's the epitome of unconditional love.
It's a beautiful picture.
It is.
of what we should be striving for.
Yeah, and that's what I love about this article. It doesn't just tell us to love Peter.
Right.
It shows us
It shows us what it looks like.
this is what it looks like in action,
Yeah.
and then it gets even more specific.
Okay.
It challenges husbands. It asks, how do you behave with yours? Do you treat her like the wife? What kingdom do you want to offer her?
Wow.
Serve her or use her?
I know.
Enslave or serve by love?
These are powerful questions.
Yeah, those are some really tough questions.
But essential for
Yeah,
anybody who wants to lead with love.
It's about making sure that our actions line up.
Absolutely, aligning our actions with our intentions.
Yeah.
Making sure our love is genuine and selfless,
Yeah.
not manipulative.
Love is patient.
Yeah.
Love is kind.
Mm-hmm.
It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud.
That's good.
It's not rude. It's not self-seeking. It's not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs.
Right. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth.
Yeah, that's a high standard,
It is.
but one worth striving for.
Let's go.
Speaking of high standards,
Uh-oh.
obedience versus submission.
Ooh.
What
That's
big thought.
I know this is a hot-button issue for a lot of people.
Especially today.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how does the article deal with that?
Well, it starts by acknowledging that submission doesn't mean just doing whatever your husband says
Okay.
or like suppressing your own voice.
Right.
You know, it uses that example of Daniel and his friends again,
Right.
who disobeyed the king
Yeah.
because it violated their conscience.
So there's a difference between respecting
Exactly.
and compromising your values.
Yeah, you don't have to compromise your morals to
They're
be
like-
submissive.
So how does that play out in a marriage?
Well, it's about finding that balance again,
Okay.
honoring your husband's leadership,
Yep.
but standing firm
Yeah.
in your convictions.
Yeah.
And the article emphasizes that love should be the guiding principle.
Yeah.
If we love our spouse, we're going to seek their good,
Mm-hmm.
even if it means disagreeing or
Yeah.
setting boundaries. So it's not about one person getting their way all the time.
Right.
It's about,
It's about seeking what's best for the relationship.
Yeah.
And that might require some tough conversations,
yeah.
some compromises.
And ultimately, it's about that mutual submission.
It is.
Both the husband and wife submitting to one another.
Out of reverence for Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's recognizing that even though we're equal in God's eyes,
Right.
we have different roles
We do.
and responsibilities.
And when we embrace those roles with humility,
Right.
it creates a beautiful synergy.
It's like a dance
I love that analogy.
where each partner leads and follows
Yeah.
in turn.
Yeah. And that's exactly what the article emphasizes.
Yeah.
Submission's not about dominance or control.
Right.
It's about serving and supporting.
We're on the same team.
We're on the same team.
It's not me versus you. It's
us together.
Yeah. And when we can operate in that unity,
Right.
we can accomplish so much more
Yeah.
than we ever could alone. Okay. So what does the article say to wrap all this up?
Well, it ends with this beautiful reminder,
Okay.
and I'm going to quote it here. Let us rejoice because the best is always in the future and in hope since we are renewed and vivified in his presence.
That's beautiful.
It's encouraging, right?
Yeah.
It reminds us that even when things are tough, even when we stumble and fall, there's always hope.
Yeah.
There's always room for growth and renewal.
That's right.
We're not in this alone.
And it brings it all back to that relationship with God.
It all comes back to him.
When we're rooted in his love,
It overflows.
it overflows into everything.
It does.
Okay, so as we get ready to hear about the practical takeaways from this article,
Yeah.
what's one thing that has stood out to you so far?
Yeah. What's resonated with you?
What questions have come up for you as you've been listening to this?
Share those with us on social media.
Yeah, we want to hear from you.
We'll be right back to talk about those practical takeaways.
Okay, so we talked about transparency, we talked about sacrificial love, we talked about submission.
We covered a lot of ground.
We did a lot of big picture concepts.
Yeah.
But how do we actually put this into practice?
Right. That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah. So what are some practical takeaways from this article?
Well, the article doesn't disappoint.
Okay.
It gives us some tangible things we can do to cultivate this love in our marriage.
Okay.
And it starts with acts of service.
Oh, I love acts of service.
It's so simple, but so powerful.
Yeah, sometimes it's those little things that mean
They really do.
the most.
Yeah.
What kind of things are we talking about here?
Well, for husbands, it's about actively participating in chores around the house.
Okay.
Offering words of affirmation and encouragement.
Right.
Being present and listening.
It's about showing that you care.
Exactly.
Not just saying it, but
Right? Actions speak louder than words.
yeah. My grandma used to say love isn't just a feeling.
That's good.
It's a verb.
I like.
It's about putting your spouse's needs before your own.
Absolutely, even in the mundane thing.
Yeah. Okay, so what about for wives?
Well, for wives, it's about expressing appreciation for their husband's efforts, offering grace and forgiveness.
We all make mistakes.
We do.
Nobody's perfect.
It's about extending that grace that we receive from God.
To our spouse.
Exactly.
I think that's so important.
It's essential for any healthy relationship.
Now, beyond those individual actions, what about nurturing the connection?
Well, the article talks about spending quality time together.
Okay, like date night?
Date night.
Shared hobbies.
Shared hobbies.
Just talking.
Even just cuddling up on the couch.
Yeah, just being present.
It's about making time for each other.
Even when life is crazy.
Even when we're tired.
Putting down the phone.
Right.
Turning off the TV.
Just being together.
Yeah.
Undivided attention.
And then the article also talks about making time for spiritual growth.
Absolutely, both individually and as a couple.
Praying together.
Yeah.
Reading the Bible.
Going to church together.
Yeah, it's about inviting God into that relationship.
It changes everything.
Seeking his guidance.
Yeah, he's the ultimate source of love.
And strength.
Absolutely.
Okay, so the article ends with this powerful challenge.
It does.
It says, if we truly love the other, without idolizing and deifying the other, we should be passionate for and towards each other, seek their presence, be quick to act for their good, and the man to the point of dying for it. Christ did it. We're not talking here about dying to oneself, but about making Christ who lives in us speak to love her.
Powerful.
That's intense.
It's a high calling.
But it's also inspiring.
It is.
It reminds us that love is
selfless, modeled after Christ's love for us.
Yeah.
And it's a journey.
It's not a destination.
It's something we're constantly striving for.
To love each other better.
To grow.
To reflect God's love.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into how can biblical love strengthen your marriage?
Good stuff.
I'm going to leave you with one final thought.
Okay.
Imagine waking up every morning and asking yourself, how can I love my spouse like Jesus loves them today? Let that question guide your actions, your words, even your thoughts.
That's good.
Let it be the driving force.
Let it permeate everything.
Behind every interaction, every decision.
Every moment you share.
That's right.
That's powerful.
So thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a good one.
We hope you've learned something that you can take with you.
Yeah.
To strengthen your own marriage.
Remember, the best is yet to come.
It really is. We'll see you next time.